Almost every accountant bookie we've ever met wants to help their client. So we've got to position our service in a way that a client will actually buy it and want it. We've got to think, am I providing something they want?
Hey, this is Christian Jones from TaxProMarketer, and you're listening to the Pro Marketer Podcast. We talk about different topics within the tax and accounting space for you, the listener, to get a lot of value, to grow in your education, to know what's out there. And today is an awesome guest, someone we've had before, someone I've spoken on his podcast with, Adam Lean of the CFO Project. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks for inviting me, Christian.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. You're always welcome to be here because you bring a lot of value, a lot of insight, and things that I think our audience needs to hear about. More on that in a second. But Adam, just a little bit of your background. You're a former accountant. You built multiple businesses. And after you started some of those businesses, I think you began to realize that your understanding of accounting, of numbers, of finances is something that most business owners maybe didn't have. And so that got you into being an advisor. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I used to be an accountant, and honestly, I didn't find the idea of accounting to be that fun, much fun for me, just because you're recording the past. That's what you do as an accountant, which is needed. It's just I wanted to be somebody to help impact the business. And so at night and on the weekends, outside of my day job as an accountant, I started a business, and I started meeting other business owners over the next several years, and realized, just like you said, that I took for granted the fact that I understood the numbers.
Right.
I just assumed as an accountant that everybody understood the numbers, and it's not the case at all. There's a lot of business owners. I would say the majority of business owners out there are running their business based on their gut feel and their bank account. Like if somebody starts a heating and air business, they start that heating and air business because they have a background in trades or construction or heating and air. And so they run their business because they're a heating and air expert. And if they have to make financial decisions, they look at their bank account. They don't really understand the balance sheet, the P&L, statement of cash flows. They don't understand it as much as I think their accountant probably thinks they should understand it. And so they just needed help. And so I started working with them one-on-one. And the way that I was presenting their business to them made them, it completely opened their eyes to what's working, what's not working in their business, and what they need to do about it. So that's pretty much how I got my started in this.
I love that. No, and that's awesome. Just that you recognize your skill set, recognize the need, and have stepped towards it. And I would just tell you from our end, I run into more and more people in our space and within our kind of group of customers that we serve who are moving towards being an advisor. But I also serve and talk with a lot of people who haven't gotten there yet. And so my first question to you today, one of the main things I think we wanted to talk about is, to someone who maybe has that type of background, maybe they get numbers, maybe they're in this space, but they haven't started a branch of their company or a separate company doing anything in the vein of CFO services or advisory services. Can you talk about why that's something that they should consider starting?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There's several different reasons why we recommend that accountants and bookkeepers and enrolled agents, anybody in the financial space, should consider CFO advisory services. And the main reason we sort of advise they should start a CFO service is that we feel that a lot of accountants are in what we call the accountant's trap. And the idea is that you're in the trap if you're trading time for money. In other words, in order for an accountant to make more money, they either have to take on more clients and or work more hours. And they could take on more clients, which I know you guys do a tremendous job helping them do, but who's going to service those clients unless the accountant wants to work more hours or take on more complexity in their business, hire more people on their team or whatnot. And so I guess the big question is why? Why is the only way that in order for an accountant to earn more is to take on more clients? Why can't they just raise their fees? Well, it's because that what they're selling is deemed a commodity in the eyes of most business owners. In other words, the average business owner cannot tell the difference between a good accountant and bad one because they think all accountants do the same level of work or produce the same output. It's like you're driving down the street and you see two gas stations, and one gas station's 40 cents higher per gallon. Nobody's going to go to that one, even though the gasoline quality is better. Most people can't tell the difference, so they deem gas in their car as a commodity. And so we in the accounting space have to be able to decommoditize our services. And if you own a tax practice or a bookkeeping practice or any other accounting service, you can't go to market by saying, I could do your books better, faster, cheaper. I do your taxes better, faster, cheaper. You could say, I will do your taxes all day long, but I will also help you have a growing and successful business.
Right.
I will do your books all day long. I can do that in my sleep. No problem. I will take care of you, but I will also help you have a better future. And the thing is, business owners, and we've studied this for the past several years, business owners will gladly pay a lot more to have their financial professional help them have a better future, way more than having their financial professional just record the past. So if you can do both, if you can record the past and help their client have a better future, all of a sudden you've decommoditized your business, and now you can charge way more for your tax service, your bookkeeping service, whatever. We even have some people that say, I don't want to do taxes ever again. And they say, I'm just going to be an advisor. And that's all they do.
Right. I love that. That brings up a lot of things to my mind, but also makes just a ton of sense just to reflect that back to you, because that is something I commonly hear from people that we talk with. It's, I don't know really what I want to do with my business because maybe I'm in that trap that you described. I'm stuck. And I think a lot of people, it might be a little strong to say it this way. So there's a spectrum here for sure. A lot of people don't like the business they've built for themselves or that they found themselves in. And so this, if you're listening now, this is just one way that you might get some light at the end of the tunnel, is to consider not just recording the past like Adam is mentioning, but looking and projecting and forecasting the future. I love that. That's really well said. Tell me, Adam, is this a good time to make that change in our industry and in the world in general, just like macro, the situation that someone might find themselves in? Is this a better time to become an advisor than you've seen in the past?
I think it's always been a great time to become an advisor, because as long as business owners are humans, they need somebody, they need another human to help them. I just think that over the years, the accounting profession has enjoyed success by default. In other words, everybody has to have their taxes done. And most people can't do it. Most business owners either can't or don't want to do it themselves. And therefore, when something is needed, there's this entire profession that's been born. So if you were an accountant, if you own an accounting firm in the 80s, your only competition really, in the 1980s, your only competition was the 4 accountants in the same town as you, the same side of town as you. Today, your competition is anybody that has a website, anybody that has a Google My Business profile, anybody that, not to mention anybody has a website, but all these overseas outsourced accounting firms that do pennies on the dollar tax returns, also software, AI. I mean, there's a ton of competition out there. And so we as an accounting, and the accounting profession has to rethink our business model. And so we can't just go to the market anymore and say, look, I'll do your, like I said earlier, I'll do your taxes better, faster, cheaper. You have to have a different value proposition. And a great way to do that is by saying, look, you own a business. Let me, somebody that you could trust, I'm your financial professional. Would you like me to show you every single month exactly what to do to stay on track to have a growing and successful business? They're going to say absolutely to that. And so the question of, is now a good time? Absolutely. I mean, 20 years ago was still a good time, but in the future, it's going to be even more important, because the barrier, I mean, let's face it, the barrier to entry to start an accounting practice is so low. You could be, you don't even have, obviously you don't have to be a CPA to start an accounting practice. You start a bookkeeping firm, you can become an enrolled agent. The barrier to entry is so low. So we've, and again, the software, the AI, the technology is just going to get better. It really is.
Right.
So most people won't need an accountant just to put numbers on a box anymore. They want their accountant to help them have a successful business. Because everybody listening, we have to remember business owners' business, their business is their livelihood. It is the thing that puts food on their family's table. So it must work. In the past, the accounting industry has been working for these business owners. Almost every business on earth has had an accountant at one point or the other, but most businesses end up failing. If they all had accountants, the accountant's job is to record the past. You could be the accountant for the Titanic and still record the past. Like, oh, last 20 minutes, it listed at 45 degrees. The last 10 minutes listed at 80 degrees. The Titanic still sunk. Right. And so the average business owner will pay you a lot more if you can not only record the past, but help them have a successful future.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's a ton of wisdom. So if you guys are paying attention, I hope you're taking notes. And we'll give you lots of information on how to contact Adam later on. But hopefully this is stirring some good ideas. But I'm guessing there's objections. I'm guessing there's objections from people that are listening right now. And maybe there's things you've seen. What are the things when someone who is an accountant, who is a bookkeeper, transitioning to be a CFO, to be an advisor, what are the things you find are common, let's say roadblocks or bumps, or just as they evolve? Are there any common things that you could speak to that people might be thinking about now? Well, Adam, you don't know my business, or you don't know me, or I'm not going to be good at that. I don't think I could do that for my clients.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's usually three things that we found. The first is they don't feel they have time. So my plate is already full. How am I going to take on clients? So I'll address number one in just a second. So the first is they don't have time. The second is imposter syndrome. Most people, a lot of accountants, not most, but a lot of accountants and a lot of bookkeepers thinking there's no way I can be the CFO of any business. I'm not a CFO. I'm an accountant. I'm a bookkeeper. So they're letting imposter syndrome steep in. And then number three is they just don't have a methodology or way or system to do it. Because a lot of accountants or bookkeepers are providing advice, and a lot of them are thinking that they're providing advice when they're really not. Like they think, oh, I'm reviewing my client's tax return every year, and I'm reviewing my client's balance sheet and statement of cash flows and P&L with them every month. Therefore, that's an advisory service. And most of those services are not really advisory services because the client doesn't really understand what you're talking about. And if they don't understand, they're not going to take action in their business. And if they don't take action, their business is not going to improve. And by the way, a lot of accountants are trying to make their clients accountants when in other words, they're speaking accounting language to clients when we need to be speaking business owner language to clients to get them to take action. So those are the three things that they don't feel like they have enough time, the imposter syndrome, and they just don't have a methodology. And so one of the things that I think set mine and Jeff, my business partner, when we started our CFO advisory firm apart from everybody else is that we didn't offer a fractional CFO service. We offered what we call productized CFO service. And so a fractional CFO service is where you literally become the CFO for a client just on a fractional or part-time basis. So if you have 4 clients, you're probably spending, say, 15 hours a week per client. And that's full time right there. That's about 60 hours a week for 4 clients. All 4 clients will feel like a part-time job.
Right.
And because it is. And each client is going to be customized. And by the way, if one client has an issue come up, the owner of that business is not going to care that you're only allocated 15 hours. They expect you to help. And so it gets, and you can't take on a 5th client or 6th client because when are you going to do it? And so we offered a productized CFO service, and we've perfected this over the years. But the idea is that think of like toothpaste, the manufacturer, let's say Colgate. They develop the toothpaste once, and then they manufacture it thousands of times a day, millions of times a year. That's how we need to think of our service. We need to sell it as a service, as a CFO advisory service, which that service is highly valued, but we need to deliver it like a product. So every client that we take on, we do the same thing with every client every month. That way we can hire employees and teach them parts of the system. And our clients don't know that we're using a system. They just know that they're getting results. But we've gotten it down to it takes on average 4 to 7 hours per month per client
Wow.
to provide a CFO advisory service in a way that's productized, which means you could take on a lot more clients. So that first problem, if you don't have time, just eliminate some of your existing clients or delegate them or white label or partner, do a joint venture with another CPA or bookkeeping firm and share their clients so that you could free up time or some of your employees' time to take on these higher value clients where you're charging between $1,500 and $5,000 per month. And so that sort of tackles that first problem if you don't have time. The second problem is imposter syndrome. A lot of people that we've met just don't think that they can be a CFO.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. Can most people listening probably tomorrow become the CFO for Microsoft? Probably not. Maybe. Probably not, though. But can most people listening become a CFO for Paul's heating and air business down the street? Absolutely. 99% of all businesses are considered small. And only 9% of businesses make more than $1 million annual revenue. All of these businesses, the 99% of them need help. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, half of them fail before they reach their 5th birthday. And most 80% fail by their 10th birthday. And so they need help. So can an accountant, a bookkeeper, somebody that understands the financials, can they become an advisor to a small business? Absolutely. So the imposter syndrome is born out of this idea that they're thinking they have to be the level of Microsoft CFO in order to help a small business. And it's not the case because Microsoft CFO's needs are completely different than a small business's needs. Completely different.
Right. Well, and it feels like you're tapping into the same thing you discovered, Adam, and encouraging people that they probably have a lot more to offer than they think. Yep. They probably have a lot more to offer than they think to, I would imagine, a lot of their existing customers, right? So maybe we'll talk about that. Like, what are the things, if they got trained, if they did this, like where do leads come from or where do, they start to grow? But they probably already have those small business clients that they just aren't explaining, or maybe it starts with the accountant or the bookkeeper knowing they could do this, right? So that's the training component. But are there like big aha moments that you get with your customers when they go through this process and is there like light bulb moments that you can identify or talk about?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I started doing this about 9 years ago with other friends that I didn't even call it a CFO service. It was just, I was helping people that owned a business and we met. And I started meeting with them. And this is when I met with every single client in person. I would drive to their office and I would print out all these reports and I would do these ratio analysis and I would forecast and present all these documents that I was proud of. And month after month after month, my clients you could just tell that they were bored. You could just tell by sitting across the table from them. And I remember one meeting, I just put the documents aside and I just said, let's have a conversation. Yeah. And it dawned on me that the reason why they bought my service in the first place is because I was painting this picture of them having a better business. And then me being their confidant, their guide, their sort of go-to financial guide, if you will. And they liked that. I made them feel better, more confident by having me on their team. But when I was meeting with them and all I was doing was just going through the numbers, I wasn't doing any of what I promised. I wasn't making them feel like they had somebody on their team shouldering their business with them and helping them grow. So then when I started talking with them and letting them talk about their business, there was a switch that changed. So the very next meeting, this is a very true story. Between that meeting and the next meeting, I went on a cruise with my wife, and we went up to the bridge. They let us do a tour of the ship, and went up to the bridge, and there was 3 giant monitors that the captain and whoever else is on the bridge is looking at all times. And every single thing on that ship was every single component, engineering component, electrical, ship functions, whatever, fire alarm, everything was on one of these three monitors represented by a color, red, green, or yellow. So if everything was green, that means the ship from electrical to the engine system down below, to the food service, to the whatever was fine. But if it was yellow, something turned a little block, it was a little square, turned yellow for something, then they know, all right, in deck 6, we have an issue in this particular area of the ship. And they knew they could immediately identify and rectify the issue. Immediately. And so I was standing there and it dawned on me, that's what my client needs, my client's needs. So I went back and I created this rudimentary scoreboard with red, green, or yellow. And I put all of those reports that I used to give them in, and I boiled it down to what we now call drivers of revenue, profit, and cash flow. So it's almost like KPIs, but these are the things that drive revenue, profit, and cash flow. So put those in red, green, or yellow, and I gave it to my client. And I said, look, these are the things that drive your business. If everything's in green, you will hit your targets that we set for this year. You will. There's no question. And targets meaning profit, revenue, and cash in the bank, and take home, what you're going to take home targets.
Right.
So we need to get everything in the green. But these items and these two things in red, I want us to work on the one of them this month and one of them next month. And that's what we did. And then and that lasted 5 minutes of the meeting, that scoreboard conversation. The rest of the meeting was talking about how to fix that thing in red. And they loved it. They were engaged. They knew exactly what to do. We came up with a plan at the end. They knew what to fix. By the next meeting, the idea is that the red would turn either yellow or green. And we just kept doing that. And we raised the bar. We raised the level of what would be green year after year after year after year with my clients. And they just got better and better and better because they now understood what to do.
Right.
And they took action because I had no control over my clients. Microsoft CFO, at least as an employee of Microsoft, and they get to dictate what needs to happen to other employees. I don't get to dictate what happens with my clients because they don't work for me. So I have to get them to want to take action.
That's fascinating. And that just, sparks a lot of thoughts for me. But I would imagine that once you got that scoreboard out in front of those 9 original customers that you were working with, once you started talking with them, obviously you eventually evolved to be where you're at now, leading the CFO project. So here we are. But just going back to that moment, there had to be an insane amount of job security for you with them once you made that turn, that they looked to you as something beyond. Maybe, Adam, it's what they thought you would be the whole time, right? When you get an accountant, like that's just looking at the past, they may not say it this way. Maybe I'm fishing here, but I would imagine a lot of people are like, I want you to do more, but I don't even know what it is. And you bring this scoreboard and they're like, that's it. I can see. Right. And they're just not going to leave you, right? I mean, tell me that's either true just in your story or for your customers, that this creates a lot of trust and a lot of tethers that maybe you wouldn't have if you were only looking at the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I still have my very first client to this day.
Is that right?
Yeah. Business clients, if you're helping them have a growing, successful business, they're not going to leave you. But even if you're not helping them have a growing, successful business, as defined as generating more cash flow, that's really what a successful business is a business that's able to generate positive cash flow on a regular basis. Even if you're not helping them do that, they'll still retain you. In our experience, we've studied this a lot. They'll still retain you because they value having somebody that understands their business and understands numbers. They value having somebody like that they can talk to.
Yeah. Because
questions like, can I hire somebody? Should I raise my prices? Can I afford to buy this truck? Those types of questions, who can they turn to that is looking at their business from a objective lens without the rose-colored glasses? They can't really talk to their employees. They don't get it. Their friends are supportive, but they're not business owners usually. You can't bring home more baggage to their spouse. Their banker is not really a business-oriented person. Their banker just wants their lend's money. And the lawyers look at things truly from a legal lens. So who can business owners turn to? Well, we found that there's 2 main groups of people, either accountants or bookkeepers or business coaches. The problem with business coaches is that the vast majority of them do not understand how cash flows through a business. And as we just talked about, the only metric that dictates a successful business from one that fails is positive cash flow, being able to generate that on a regular basis. That's a financial metric.
Right.
A lot of business coaches are leadership coaches, life coaches, sales coaches. They mean well, but how can they make a decision? How can they advise without understanding how their advisement impacts cash flow?
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves accountants and bookkeepers because they understand the numbers. They
Right.
understand cash flow. They just
Right.
need a way to be able to communicate that in a way that a non-accountant would understand.
Mm.
And I think that's the code that we cracked in that getting a client, we developed these systems over the years to get clients, again, whom we have no control over to take action.
Mm.
And yeah, and that's why they keep us, that's why clients keep their CFO advisor around, because they need somebody in their lives. They want somebody in their lives that gets it. Because we have to remember also that there's a lot of insecure business owners out there, but they start a business because they're great at a thing. So they start a business doing that around that thing. Fast forward 5 years, if they're still in business, they're making money, they know either one of two things. They're just one good month away from making, or bad month away from going out of business, and they're scared to death of that, or they're doing really well, but they're not sure how they even got there because
Right.
I'm a roofer and I started a roofing business 5 years ago. Either way, they need somebody. They would love somebody who gets it to just talk with them every single month and guide
Mm.
them, make sure they're on the right track.
Mm. Well, that makes me think, maybe just to kind of parrot some of that back to you, that obviously you need the skills and training. You need this red light, green light, yellow light system. You need to have your eyes open first. But one of the other things that I'm hearing from what you're saying is that being a business owner is lonely, and
Yeah,
having someone to talk to, someone that you can bring some of the most difficult parts of your business, which is the financial side, you can bring it to them and have someone that you trust. And that really resonates. I think we'll say that about marketing at times, is that marketing is built on relationships and trust. And that's most of everything in business, right? And so coming in and being able to position yourself to your customers as someone that maybe you can lean on me a little bit, I can hold some of the hardest things and I can give you answers. That's a really unique selling proposition. It's more than just
yeah,
data and decisions. It is that, but it sounds like it's also giving people confidence, like you're doing good, or this needs to change. And catching that might save how many dozens of businesses if they just heard that
totally.
ahead of time.
Yeah, it really helps clients have a peace of mind. And
Mm.
for people that experience what we're talking about, having, and they have this peace of mind, you can't really put a dollar value on it.
Yeah.
You just can't. People want a peace of mind, and it's not just business owners; anybody does, but especially business owners, because they're juggling so many things. And
Mm.
you're right that it's lonely, and a lot of us listening to this podcast are business owners. We own an accounting practice, or
Right.
bookkeeping practice, or whatever.
Mm.
You could probably relate. And I've owned several businesses. It is lonely. There was a point when I owned so I was an accountant. I started a e-commerce store. This is back in 2007. And a couple of years after that, I was at a point where I was doing well revenue wise, but my cash flow was just tanking. And I understood, again, I took for granted the fact that I understood that, but I didn't have anyone to turn to for help. Like I would have loved somebody that did what we do to help me back then, around the
Right.
2009, 2010 timeframe. And I tried, and I hired like 3 different business coaches. It just wasn't the type of help. I needed somebody that gave me actual pragmatic, practical advice, not just sit down and let's do a SWOT analysis or a vision statement or whatever. And so we keep things results focused. And this is what we train all of the CFOs that go through our program. We got to keep things results focused so you can show your client how you're improving and show them exactly what they need to do every single month to improve.
Right. Do you worry at all, as like a common question I ask most people that we bring on our podcast or I do webinars with, think it's really a ubiquitous question right now. It's finding itself all over our industry and all over, I think, just the world, any business, but certainly the tax and accounting space is no exception. How do you think or feel about AI and the role of AI as it relates to this part of our space, really any part of our space? Obviously, it's an asset, it's a tool, it's a developing system that will make some of our jobs a lot easier. But do you ever worry about roles like this ever being gobbled up by truly just a software that excludes human involvement?
Yeah, so I don't worry about that for a couple of reasons. One, AI is not going away. So what's the point in worrying? And whatever version in the future AI ends up being called in the future, it's not going to go away. So we've got to embrace it. But two, and I think this is the main thing, especially for those in the accounting industry, is that AI and software, like in technology, and everything revolved around technology, is only going to help accountants take care of the things that is probably low value things, low value tasks. So for example, they're predicting within the next decade that AI will be able to completely do tax returns and tax advisory and all this, everything related to tax, they'll be able to, this technology will be able to take care of. That means that the accountant will then be able to spend time, because they'll have more time, on the things that are highly valued in the eyes of a client. So tax advisory, business advisory, things that we're talking about with CFO advisory. Because as long as a business owner is a human, they want another human to help them, to guide them. It's like the psychology, the therapy industry. AI is not going to, I know this is a definitive statement, but AI cannot replace a human to human connection. And humans need another human who feels empathy for them, that can be their confidant, their sounding board, their guide. They need that. And so now the accountant will have all this time freed up to work on higher value things. And I predict that their income level is going to rise, because now the lower value, the commoditized stuff, will be taken care of automatically. And now they can focus on much, much, much higher things. They'll make way more money.
I love that. Yeah, great answer. And that seems to be consistent with what I'm hearing everyone kind of say with AI. If you lean into it, it's going to make you more efficient. If you lean into it, it's going to make you get out of the low-level tasks, the commodity tasks that you just described, and give you the ability to offer something else, something of higher value, which means, Adam, you're a perfect fit for people to dive in and get that training, to get beyond just recording stuff from the past. Because maybe some of that low-level commodity stuff, maybe that will be changed. I think it will be. It already is changing before our eyes in terms of how tax accounting or bookkeeping professional engages with their work. I don't think humans are going away, but nonetheless, if you're not evolving with it, you might, maybe eventually there are some things that get gobbled up that are cheaper software services, but not this. Not this. This is something that's going to stay, brings a ton of value to the conversation with businesses, and is something that, again, the time is now. What a fun time to be in our space in that regard. Yeah, not scary at all. Very exciting.
And I think you'll appreciate this as a marketer, but I firmly believe that everything we do, regardless of what industry we're in, but we're all in the accounting industry, everything we need to do needs to be thought through the lens of, what do my customers want? And if you can solve that, if you can answer that, what do my customers want? Then you'll be able to position your service, your offering, in a way that they'll get them to buy, and buy at a higher rate, and buy it and pay a lot more for the service. Everybody needs their books to be done, their taxes to be done. That's needed. But how can you turn that service, that needed service, into something they want? And I think that's the $1 million question. That will transform your practice. If you could turn my commoditized tax service into a tax plus advisory, CFO advisory service, then you could be the one-stop shop for your clients. And you could have a lot less clients, but charge a lot more, because now you're providing something they want in addition to what they need. You'd be unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going there. I mean, this is the thing that I want to drive our audience to today is your $192,000 program. Let me make sure I got the name right. The $192,000 training.
Yeah.
That's the training, right? So
Yeah.
tell me about that training. How do I take a step towards this reality, and why $192,000?
Yeah. It's actually a free training, and it's 4 short lessons where you can learn how to make $192,000 from just CFO advisory services
Hmm.
over the next 12 months. So it's a free training, and we call it the $192,000 because we build a case. We pull up an Excel spreadsheet, show you how, step by step, exactly how to make $192,000 from CFO advisory services, just from CFO advisory services. If you still want to do bookkeeping or tax, that's in addition. So that's just gravy, if you will. So that's why we call it that.
I love that. Okay, so the steps that we go through here are, let's go to the link we'll drop in the notes, which is cfoproject.com/192,000-training.
Yeah.
And then
Or you just go to the CFOproject.com and it's on the front page there.
okay, so it's on the front page of cfoproject.com, and we'll put both the main site and that specific link in the show notes. And then the next step from there is I get on a call with you, or is it the training directly?
Yeah, so the training itself will show you exactly how to make $192,000, and then it'll explain what the CFO project is,
Okay.
and if it's right for you. Because it may not be, but essentially the CFO project is a training and mentorship program where for 12 months, we'll train you and we'll mentor you on how to become a CFO advisor. And we'll show you what, at the end of that, the $192,000 training will show you what it is. And then you'll be invited to get on what we call a right fit call, where you and 2 other accountants or bookkeepers will be on the same call, and an enrollment advisor will just give you a tour of our program. It's not a sales call, it's just a tour, and see if the program's right for you. And then if so, they'll continue the conversation.
I got it. That seems like a huge amount of value, Adam. I think that as I talk with people in our space, again, as I mentioned at the top, this is one of the biggest pivots that I'm seeing. There's maybe 1 or 2 others that I see people stepping towards, and some of that's really either the Venn diagram would overlap a lot.
Yeah.
Those other things and what you're doing. But if you're at all curious, wherever you're at, whatever your experience level is, if you're in this industry, if you're a professional serving businesses and individuals, and you're wanting to adapt, change, grow your firm, learn something new, add more value, this is about as good of an option as you could have to take a step with Adam, to get some free training, to explore working with him, and maybe to have that 12-month program just lined up for you to launch you out for the next decade in a completely different direction, working less, making more, and adding more value to your customers. So Adam, I love that. Thanks for putting that program together, and we will hopefully see a bunch of our people join you there. But what did we miss? Is there anything we didn't cover today that you want to hit before we let you go?
I think the main takeaway is that if we can help our clients get what they want, then we'll get what we want. And I think that a lot of accountants and bookkeepers, almost every accountant bookkeeper I've ever met, wants to help their client. Mm-hmm. They do. They want to help their client. And so we've got to position our service in a way that a client will actually buy it and want it. And so we've got to think every time I interact with a client, am I providing something that they want? And what they do want is having a growing, successful business. If we can help them get there, then we'll get everything we want in our business.
I love that. Adam, thank you again. I know this will not be the last time that we have our podcast, and I'll join you again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you. Thanks again for joining us, guys. CFOproject.com. We'll put that link in the notes. Reach out to Adam and his team, and we will catch you guys next time on our next installment of the Pro Marketer Podcast. Until then, we'll see you later.